all Palestinians and Muslims were utterly astounded by the new Zionist military operation in Jenin, known as the Iron Wall, which started on January 21st and persists until now, with 10 martyrs and 40 wounded so far.
The number is a candidate for increase. Operation. They wait for it to carry several very important meanings. Muslim life is supposed to take this issue very seriously. First, it coincides with Trump's term, which means that the next day immediately is a text set up on January 20th, which is the operation on January 21, and it is clear that in a green light from Trump for this one. This process and green light is a historical reference and a reference in contemporary reality at his own inauguration ceremony. What Trump did, the historical dimension, is that Trump, in his first term, which is from 2017 to 2021, recognized the West Bank as part of Israel in several ways. Or approved the Jewish settlements in the West Bank. It is part of Israel in several ways. First on 2018 AD. In the second year directly of his term, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was reduced. The American government pronounced the occupied territory from its official website and replaced it with the West Bank and Gaza, so no more. Before that, in all the reigns of previous American presidents, it was called the occupied territory. This topic changed, and in 2019 specifically, on November 19th, the US Secretary of State at the time, Mike Pompeo, said that the US administration no longer considered Jewish settlements in. The territories of the West Bank and Gaza have gone from being in violation of international law to being non-violating and are therefore part of Israel. On 10 to 28, 2020 AD. Israel signed with America a treaty for scientific cooperation and scientific cooperation, which included scientific sites located in settlements on land in the West Bank. This also includes recognition of this issue and also the settlements located in the occupied Syrian Golan. On 12 to 24, the 2020, Washington agreed to be placed on goods manufactured in the Jewish settlements located in the West Bank. Loves or tagged and made in Israel, and therefore these settlements were considered Israeli places. All of this reinforces the idea that the West Bank is part of Israel, which does not mean the nucleus of a future Palestinian state. The contemporary situation on Inauguration Day. On the first day of Trump's inauguration, he signed the lifting of sanctions on those settlers who attacked the Palestinians. From 10/7/2023 AD until our time now, Biden imposed sanctions on them because they raised the issue in the West Bank unnecessarily, and these sanctions included denying them visas to enter the United States, freezing their funds in the United States, and preventing Americans from dealing with them physically or economically. There were certain penalties. Trump from day one lifted these sanctions, and so it is like giving the green light to the rest of the Jewish settlers. They are invading the Palestinian territories in the West Bank. I comment on the issue of this soil and the abolition of sanctions as lifting the injustice against the Jews. The first thing remains that the storming of Jenin coincides with the Trump term, which means that we are still in the first Trump term and that there are escalations that will exist in the future in this country. The issue, Numra Etna, this escalation is also simultaneous with the ceasefire in Gaza, as if the Jews are not patient with the shedding of Palestinian blood, as soon as the issue stopped in Gaza on the third day directly. Following the ceasefire, operations began in the West Bank, taking advantage, of course, of the calm on the southern front with Gaza and the availability of Israeli Forces Number 3. This is also synchronized with the map published by the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we talked about it before. It published it on its official website on 1/7/2024 AD and said that date Israel's historical borders. In this map, the West Bank and Gaza were airborne as Israel's borders. She also placed parts of southwestern Syria and northwestern Jordan and said that they are Israel's historical date, and therefore we said at the time that this is a pulse test for the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, and a pulse test for the Syrians and Jordanians, that this is the possibility of lands candidate for occupation and expansion by the Zionist entity, the point. Fourth, during the recent period, several months, the Jews do not say the West Bank and Gaza in their words, or the West Bank specifically, meaning they do not say the goal of their statements, but they call them Jews, and they continue, and these are the words well known in the Torah and in Jewish historical documents. They want to consolidate the idea that these are parts of the Zionist entity and not of a Palestinian state in the future. The 5 points are also very dangerous. Netanyahu has also announced and printed in a clearer way, as well as the head of the Israeli Shin Bet, the desire to annex the West Bank with the utmost clarity and frankness. They said, or at least annexed large parts of the West Bank, and they said that they refuse to establish a Palestinian state because this poses a danger to Israeli public security. The 6th point we heard from the Israeli Minister of Construction and Housing on January 12th, meaning 9 days before the operation, but he said that we are calling for attracting 1,000 Jews to settle in the West Bank specifically. Timing means determining this timing for a military operation. There is a significant danger that Netanyahu's government might fall. And holding early elections, and this is because of the withdrawal of Ben Gvir, the Jewish Minister of National Security, from the government after the ceasefire in Gaza, and the threat that he too would withdraw. Ben Gvir's withdrawal, not alone, no, this is him, and also 5 members of his party, 6 in total, leave the number supporting him. L. For Netanyahu, 62 instead of 68 in the Knesset. And therefore, if Smotrich also withdrew with the members of his party, it is possible. The government will fall, and that is why Netanyahu is carrying out a military operation, so that Harry will please Smotrich and the people who are with him on the right. The extremist Jew who wants a complete occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, this will keep his government going. Everything we said is consistent with Trump's vision, and his team is in Trump and his team. We do not want 2 states. We do not want a state. Israel and a Palestinian state? No, they want to provide Palestinians with a space to live without granting them a full-fledged state. They want something between autonomy, a little higher than autonomy, and a little less than the state, so that they can live, as they say, under the protection of the Jews in peace without having a state that affects the Jews, and the Jews themselves is possible. They don't want to clearly and completely annex the West Bank to the Zionist entity. Why? Because this may change the demographics. For the state of Israel, the Arabs will become there higher than the Jews, and this affects strategic national security for the Jews. That is why they do not want to break all the capabilities that exist in the West Bank and annex parts of it, such as Jenin and other areas. And at the same time also, if they do not count them, change in demographic composition. This will be achieved through military operations such as the Iron Wall and others in the East Jerusalem and others. Different areas of the West Bank. They have actually started working like streets and like roads that will lead them to the settlements, which are many in the West Bank. Why did they stay? They started in Jenin specifically and not in any other area in the West Bank for many reasons, perhaps the most important of which is that Jenin is not under the control of the Palestinian Authority, but is controlled by some of the Palestinian brigades. The armed forces are like the Jenin Battalion, the Talkar Battalion, and Turkarm are like the Balata Battalion and the Arin Battalion. The Lions are the Nablus Battalion and others. Therefore, they represent a greater danger to the Zionist entity, including some of the attacks on the Jews in the recent period. Of course, in addition to Jenin's proximity to the border, the West Bank with the Zionist entity in Masama in Israel in this region, and therefore it is possible. B. There is a kind of close contact that can work. Future tensions, as it is not expected to be an embryo process, this is a particular embryo, but most of the matter is the beginning, followed after that by the occupation of some other areas in the West Bank. Therefore, the Palestinians, the Arabs, and all Muslims must give the matter its size and take the issue with the utmost seriousness. And we ask God Almighty to grant victory to the Muslims and to respond to the plot of the plotters. May God's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you.